emotionally distressing or upsetting experience that we haven't fully processed or dealt with will creates certain beliefs and learnings that stem from that event or events. And that belief or thinking pattern creates emotions, which then often create behaviors. So when you mentioned resolving the root issue, many times certain habits like smoking might just be about smoking. And sure, the person has stress and other things like that. But usually dealing with that on its own is enough. And that's often the case with food, eating habits, and other things. But sometimes that emotion is really fed by a very strong habitual thought pattern. So if we look at things like anxiety, very often that's just the belief, I'm not safe. It can be general, like I'm not safe on this planet, in the world, in my life, in my body. I'm not safe on airplanes. I'm not safe around men with beards, whatever. I'm not safe around dogs. So there's some belief, subconscious belief, meaning the person can deny it logically, rationally, but they still react as though it were true. And they learned it because we weren't born with these problems. So people learned through some experience, maybe traumatic, maybe witnessing a parent freak out on an airplane, if that's the case. And so the person develops the belief, I'm not safe, ... And then when they're in a situation, general or specific, that matches that belief system, the fight or flight response is triggered in the case of anxiety, let's say. And so then they have an emotional reaction that's called anxiety, and then the physical symptoms of that. And then very often, if this is a constant thing that the person has to deal with, they will find behaviors that will alleviate that discomfort, typically drinking or taking prescription meds or eating. And if it just gives them a little bit of a break from that crappy feeling, then hey, that's successful. Now that the problem is it solves the problem short term, but doesn't change anything in the long term. So this eventually becomes an emotionally compulsive habit or addiction. And then they get caught in this whole pattern where their subconscious created the anxiety based on an incorrect belief or disempowering belief, and then finds a behavior to alleviate the emotion. The underlying root issue is usually trauma. Most people have experienced some form of trauma that, even if we look at it objectively as an adult, it's so small. When we were a child, that might have been overwhelming. And that is the thorn or the weed, the roots of the weed. And that is what needs to be dealt with, because from that develops the belief systems, the emotional and behavioral issues that people present as their main problem, but they're only symptoms. So by dealing with the root issue, we resolve that and all of the symptoms that come from it. And the work is usually faster and more thorough and more long lasting by doing it that way.